Velvet Reckoning presents. He spent $18,000 on a dream family cruise, only to get kicked off by his own son. What he did next shocked everyone. He was standing in my garage workshop, carefully sanding down the edges of a birdhouse I'd been building for my grandson, Oliver, when my phone buzzed on the workbench. The afternoon sun was streaming through the small window, casting long shadows across the sawdust-covered floor. He'd been working on this project all week, planning to give it to Oliver during our family trip next month. The Alaska cruise was supposed to be the highlight of our summer, something I'd been looking forward to for months. He wiped the sawdust from my hands onto my jeans and reached for the phone, expecting maybe a text from my neighbor about our weekly chess game, or perhaps a reminder about my dentist appointment. Instead, I saw my son Michael's name on the screen. He smiled, thinking he was probably texting about last-minute cruise details, or maybe asking if I needed him to pick anything up before we left. But as I read the message, the smile froze on my face. "Hey, Al. Need to talk to you about the cruise. Vanessa and I have been discussing it, and we think it might be better if this trip was just the three of us. You understand, right? It's important for us to have some quality family time with Oliver. We can all do something together another time." He read it again, then a third time. Each time the words felt like they were rearranging themselves into something even more painful. Used the three of us. Quality family time. Another time. Imagine funding your family's dream vacation, only to be told you're not invited. Stay with Velvet Reckoning, because this grandfather's revenge is ice cold. He set the phone down slowly and looked at the half-finished birdhouse, baiting my reflection in the darkened phone screen. I could still see Michael's message glowing, the words burning themselves into my vision. My hands were trembling slightly, and it wasn't from the power sander I'd been using. The Alaska cruise wasn't just any trip. He'd spent months planning it, researching the best routes, the most family-friendly excursions. He'd booked a suite with connecting rooms, specifically so Oliver could easily come between our cabins. He'd even arranged for a private whale-watching tour, because Oliver had been obsessed with orcas since he was 5 years old. The total cost was sitting at just over $18,000. I'll charge to my credit card. And now, apparently, I wasn't invited to my own family vacation. He walked back into the house, my mind racing. The living room still had photos of my late wife Sarah scattered across the mantel. She'd passed away 4 years ago after a brutal fight with breast cancer. And raising Michael through that loss had been one of the hardest things I'd ever done. Or so I thought. It seemed I hadn't done such a great job after all. He sat down at my kitchen table, the same table where Sarah and I had shared countless meals, where we'd helped Michael with his homework, where we'd celebrated birthdays and holidays. My coffee mug was sitting there from this morning, and I picked it up, even though the coffee inside had long gone cold. He needed something to hold onto while I processed what I'd just read. See, this wasn't just about a cruise. This was about everything I'd done for Michael and Vanessa over the past 5 years. When Sarah got sick, our savings took a massive hit. The treatments, the experimental therapies we'd hoped would save her, the home care in those final months. It had cost us nearly everything we'd built together. After she passed, I was left with the house, my teacher's pension, and not much else. But I was okay with that. Edie had 37 beautiful years with the love of my life. And our son was doing well. That's all that mattered. Or at least that's what I told myself. Michael had come to me 3 years ago with Vanessa, his girlfriend of those years. They wanted to buy a house in Burlington, just outside Toronto. The market was insane. They said they'd been outbid on 6 properties. They needed help with the down payment. More than that, they needed me to co-sign the mortgage. Because Michael's job as a marketing coordinator didn't quite meet the bank's requirements. And Vanessa's income from her yoga studio was too inconsistent. I'd hesitated, not because I didn't want to help my son, but because I knew that co-signing meant I was fully responsible if they couldn't make payments. But Michael had looked at me with those eyes, the same as Sarah had, and said, "Dad, we really need this. We're planning to start a family and we need stability." So, I signed. 125,000 pesos added to their down payment. My name on a $400,000 mortgage. 6 months later, they got engaged. Vanessa wanted a party. Not just any party, but an engagement celebration at one of Toronto's upscale venues. Michael had pulled me aside and explained that Vanessa's family had certain expectations, and they couldn't afford to disappoint them. Could that possibly help out? 15,000 pesos later, they had their party. Ice sculptures, premium open bar, a live band, the works. Edith smiled through the whole thing. Even when Vanessa's mother had made a comment about how generous Michael was to give everyone such a lovely evening. Then came the wedding last year, another 25,000. Edith refinanced my house to help cover it, because by that point, my savings were nearly depleted. But it was fine. It was all fine. Michael was happy. Vanessa seemed happy. And Oliver, their surprise pregnancy turned beautiful boy, had become the light of my life after Sarah's death. He'd been the one at the hospital when Oliver was born, because Michael had to work and Vanessa's mother was in Mexico. I'd been the one who helped with the night feedings when they brought him home. He'd been the one who showed up every Sunday for family dinner, bringing groceries because I noticed their fridge was often embarrassingly empty, despite their thriving careers. And now, apparently, I was too much of a burden to bring on a family vacation that I'd paid for. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Michael. Also, Dad, we're going to need to use your credit card for some expenses on the trip. Our cards are pretty maxed out right now. We'll pay you back, promise. Something inside me cracked, not broke exactly, more like crystallized. Became clear and sharp and cold. He called him immediately. He answered on the third ring. And I could hear Oliver singing in the background. That deep, pure voice that always made me smile. "Hey, Ad. What's up? Did you get my message?" "I did," I said, keeping my voice steady. "I need you to explain something to me, Michael. Help me understand what just the three of us means. When I'm the one who booked and paid for this entire trip." There was a pause. Then I heard him say something muffled, his hand probably over the phone's microphone. When he came back, his voice had taken on that particular tone he used when he was trying to manage me. I recognized it from when he was a teenager trying to explain why he'd missed curfew. "Dad, don't take it personally. Vanessa just thinks that, you know, given your age and everything, the cruise might be too much for you. All that walking, the excursions, the late nights. We don't want you to feel uncomfortable or like you're holding us back." "My age," I repeated. "I'm 62, Michael. I still go for a 5 kilometers run 3 times a week. I volunteer at the community center. Last month, I helped renovate your sister's deck." "I know, Dad, but what?" Another pause. Then Vanessa's voice came through sharp and clear. She must have taken the phone from him. "Bob, look. Michael's too nice to say it, but I'm not. This trip is for our nuclear family. You're not part of that. Oliver needs to bond with his actual parents. Not his grandfather, who spoils him constantly and undermines our parenting. Plus, honestly, we're planning to have my parents join us for part of the cruise. And it would just be too crowded with you there, though." The world seemed to tilt slightly. "Your parents are coming on the cruise. We invited them." "Yes. They're meeting us in Juno. They've never been to Alaska and we thought it would be nice. You invited your parents to a trip I paid for, but I'm not invited myself." "Bob, you need to stop being so dramatic. You can't expect us to plan our entire lives around you. Used because you helped us out a few times. That's what parents do. They help their kids. It's not some kind of transaction. He was quiet for a long moment. In the background, I could hear Oliver ask Michael something about packing his stuffed whale. My throat felt tight. Put Michael back on, I said quietly. Bob, put my son back on the phone now. There was shuffling, muffled voices. And then Michael was back. Dad, listen. I'm sorry, Vanessa was blunt, but she has a point. We really do think this is for the best. Michael, I have one question for you, and I need you to answer me honestly. Do you actually want me on this trip, or is this entirely Vanessa's decision? The silence that followed told me everything I needed to know. EAJ cancel my ticket, I said finally. You three, enjoy yourselves. Thanks, Dad. I knew you'd understand. And hey, we really do appreciate everything you do for us. We make it up to you. I promise. Maybe we can do a day trip to Niagara Falls or something when we get back. He ended the call without responding. For a long time, I just sat there at the kitchen table, staring at nothing. Then I picked up my laptop and started looking through my files. He found the cruise booking confirmation. All 3 tickets had been booked under my name charged to my credit card. The trip was in 4 weeks. Then I opened my email and searched for messages from Michael. There were dozens from the past few months. Requests for money to fix their car. A plea for help with Oliver's daycare costs because they'd fallen behind. A casual mention that they'd booked a weekend at a ski resort. And put it on my emergency credit card that I'd given them just for real emergencies. He opened my credit card statements. Dinner at upscale restaurants in Toronto. A new laptop for Michael. Designer clothes from boutiques I'd never heard of. Thousands of dollars in charges I hadn't authorized. All on the emergency card I'd given them for things like if their car broke down. Or Oliver needed a doctor. Then I found something else. An email thread that Michael had clearly meant to delete but hadn't. It was between him and Vanessa from 3 months ago. Vanessa, your dad's getting really annoying about the money. Maybe we should just cut contact after we get the house fully in our name. Michael, he's harmless. As long as we keep him thinking he's helpful, he'll keep paying for stuff. Once the house is ours clear, we can phase him out. My mom's life insurance should come to me eventually anyway, right, Vanessa? Assuming there's anything left after he burns through it. Did you see he bought Oliver that expensive bike? We could have gotten a cheaper one and pocketed the difference. Michael, he's useful for now. Let's just keep him happy. The Alaska trip will probably be the last big thing we need from him. Vanessa, about that. I really don't want him on that cruise. He hovers over Oliver constantly, and my parents keep asking why we can't afford our own vacations. It's embarrassing. Michael, I'll handle it. EAJ tell him something about it being too strenuous for him at his age. EAJ by it. He always does. He read it 3 times, 4 times. The words kept rearranging themselves, but the meaning stayed exactly the same. My son thought I was a walking ATM machine. My daughter-in-law thought I was an embarrassment. And together, they've been planning to phase me out of Oliver's life. As soon as they'd squeezed enough money out of me. He uncovered emails proving they were using him. What he did with that evidence? Changed everything. Bellbeat Reckoning reveals the brutal truth next. He stood up from the table and walked to the window. Outside, my neighbors were setting up for a barbecue. Kids were riding bikes down the street. The world was carrying on like normal. Like my entire relationship with my son hadn't just been revealed as a complete fraud. He thought about Sarah. What would she say if she could see this? Would she be as blindsided as I was? Or had she seen something in Michael that I'd missed? We'd raised him to be kind, generous, thoughtful. We'd taught him the value of family, of loyalty, of gratitude. Apparently, we'd failed. Or maybe we'd succeeded too well at teaching him that family would always be there for him no matter what. That parents were an infinite resource. That their love was unconditional. So there was no need to ever earn it or maintain it. He went back to my laptop. My hands were steady now. The shock had burned away, leaving something cold and clear and focused. First, I logged into my credit card account. The emergency card I'd given Michael and Vanessa had a balance of over $32,000. He cancelled it immediately. The automated system asked if I was sure. He clicked yes without hesitation. Then I called the cruise line. The representative was cheerful and helpful. He explained that I needed to cancel all 3 tickets for the Alaska cruise. There would be a cancellation fee, she explained, since we were within 6 weeks of departure, about $4,000. That's fine, I said. Cancel them all. All 3? Even for the family members? Especially for the family members. I'm the one who booked them. I'm the one. There was a pause. Then more carefully, Sir, I'm required to inform you that if other passengers are expecting to go on this trip, and you cancel their tickets, they will need to rebook at current prices, which are significantly higher than what you originally paid. You understand completely. Please proceed with the cancellation. After I hung up, I sat in the silence of my empty house. The cancellation confirmation email arrived within minutes. He forwarded it to Michael without any message. Then I called my bank. Hello, Mr. Anderson. How can I help you today? I need to discuss a mortgage I co-signed 3 years ago. I want to remove my name from it. I see. Well, that would require the other borrowers to refinance the loan independently. Do they meet the lending criteria on their own? I don't know. That's for them to figure out. Sir, if they can't refinance and you remove your name, the bank could potentially call the loan due immediately. I'm aware. Please start whatever process is necessary. He spent the next 2 hours on the phone with various departments. By the end of it, Michael and Vanessa had 30 days to either refinance the mortgage without me, or sell the house. If they couldn't do either, the bank would begin foreclosure proceedings. It was just after 6 in the evening when my phone started ringing. My child's name flashed on the screen. He let it go to voicemail. It called again. Voicemail again. Voicemail. Then came the texts. Dad, what the hell? The cruise got cancelled. Did you do this? You can't just cancel our vacation. Call me back now. Then Vanessa, this is unbelievable. You're acting like a child. We have Oliver to think about. I was so excited for this trip. He turned my phone face down on the table and went back to my garage. The birdhouse for Oliver was still sitting there, half finished. He picked up the sandpaper and kept working. The rhythmic motion was soothing, meditative. He could hear my phone buzzing inside the house again and again. But I didn't go back to check it. When the birdhouse was finally smooth, every edge perfect, he carried it inside and set it on the kitchen counter. Then I checked my phone. 43 missed calls. 67 text messages. He read through them all. They followed a predictable pattern. Anger, accusations, attempts at manipulation, playing the Oliver card. Vanessa threatening to cut off contact. Michael saying I'd misunderstood everything, that the email was taken out of context, that they were joking. The most recent message was from Michael. Fine, if this is how you want to be, we're done. Don't expect to see Oliver anymore. You brought this on yourself. He stared at that message for a long time. Then I took a screenshot of the email thread I'd found. He took screenshots of the credit card statements showing all the unauthorized charges. He documented everything, saved it all to a folder on my computer, and backed it up to a cloud drive. Then I called a lawyer. Sarah's brother, James, had been a family lawyer for 30 years before retiring. He answered on the second ring. Bob, how are you doing? I need advice, James. Legal advice about grandparents' rights in Ontario. There was a pause. What's going on? I told him everything. The email thread, the exclusion from the trip, the threats to keep Oliver away from me. He listened without interrupting. Bob, he said finally. I'm so sorry. But here's the good news. In Ontario, grandparents can apply for access rights if it's in the child's best interest. Given that you've been a consistent presence in Oliver's life, and you have documentation showing their motivation is financial rather than based on legitimate concerns about the child's welfare, you have a strong case. What do I need to do? Document everything. Every interaction, every denial of access, every threat. Keep those emails. If they try to prevent you from seeing Oliver, we file. But Bob, be prepared. These could get ugly. It's already ugly, James. Fair point. Let me send you some information. In the meantime, don't engage with their provocations. Keep everything civil on your end. Make sure you're the reasonable one in all communications. After we hung up, I felt something I hadn't expected. Relief. For the first time in years, maybe since Sarah died. It felt like I was taking control of my own life instead of just reacting to everyone else's demands. My phone rang again. This time it was a number I didn't recognize with a Toronto area code. He answered, Mr. Anderson, this is calling from TD Bank regarding the mortgage at 47 Maple Grove Court in Burlington. Jace, we've received your request to be removed as a co-signer. I'm calling to inform you that we've sent notice to the primary borrowers that they have 30 days to qualify for the loan independently or make alternative arrangements. Thank you. I appreciate the update. Sir, I have to ask. Are you aware that if the primary borrowers cannot secure independent financing, these could result in serious financial consequences for them? I'm fully aware. Thank you. The next morning, I woke up early and went for my usual run. The summer air was cool and fresh, and the streets were quiet. When I got back, there was a car I didn't recognize in my driveway. Michel's car. He walked up slowly, still catching my breath from the run. Michael was sitting on my front steps, and he looked terrible. His eyes were red, his hair uncombed. And he was wearing the same clothes I'd seen him in yesterday. In a photo Vanessa had posted on Instagram of their pre-trip meal prep. That, he said, standing up as I approached. We need to talk. I don't think we do. Dad, please. I know you're angry, but you can't do this. You can't just destroy our lives because of a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding? He repeated. He pulled out my phone and showed him the screenshot of his email thread with Vanessa. Explain to me what I misunderstood here, Michael. His face went white. That was just venting. You know how it is when you're frustrated. We didn't mean any of it. Which part didn't you mean? The part where you called me useful or the part where you planned to phase me out of Oliver's life? Dad, come on. You're taking this out of context. Michael, I found over $30,000 in unauthorized charges on my emergency credit card. Restaurants, clothes, electronics, weekend trips. That's not context. That's theft. We were going to pay you back. Really? With what money? You couldn't even pay for the cruise you demanded I not attend. He ran his hands through his hair. And for just a moment, I saw the boy he used to be. The one who'd cried when his hamster died. The one who'd made me breakfast in bed every Father's Day. The one who'd held Sarah's hand in the hospital and promised her he'd take care of me. But that boy was gone. Or maybe he'd never existed. Maybe I'd just been too blind to see the truth. The bank called, he said quietly. They said we have to refinance. Dad, we can't qualify on our own. We lose the house. That's unfortunate. Unfortunate? His voice rose. Dad, we have a child, your grandson. Where are we supposed to live? Perhaps you could ask Vanessa's parents, the ones you invited on my cruise. That email was her idea. He told her we shouldn't say those things, but she was angry. Because you kept trying to interfere with how we parent Oliver. He gave him a bicycle for his birthday, Michael. That's not interference. That's being a grandfather. You gave him a $1,200 bicycle. Do you know how that makes us look? Like we can't provide for our own son? Can you provide for your own son? The question hung in the air between us. Michal's face flushed red. You're supposed to be on our side, he said finally. You're supposed to help us. That's what parents do. Is it? Because what I thought parents did was raise their children to be independent, grateful, kind human beings. He thought I taught you about integrity and respect, but clearly I failed at that. So what? You're just going to let us lose our house? Let Oliver lose his home? No, Michael. You're going to let Oliver lose his home. You and Vanessa made that choice when you decided I was just a resource to be exploited. When you took advantage of my grief over losing your mother. When you excluded me from a vacation I paid for. And then had the audacity to ask for more money. He stared at me for a long moment. Then he laughed, but it was bitter. You know what? Fine. Vanessa was right about you. You're a selfish old man who wants to control everyone around him. You couldn't control Mom when she got sick. So now you're trying to control us. He felt that hit like a physical blow, but I kept my voice steady. Get off my property, Michael. With pleasure. Don't expect to ever see Oliver again. We tell him his grandfather died. It'd be easier than explaining that you chose money over family. He turned and walked to his car, got in, and drove away. He stood in my driveway for a long time after he left. Feeling hollowed out, but I also felt free. The next few weeks were difficult. I hired James to handle the legal aspects of securing visitation rights with Oliver. Michael and Vanessa contested it, of course. Claiming I was unstable and had threatened them. But I had documentation. The emails, the credit card statements, the cruise cancellation, everything was timestamped, dated, saved. James was optimistic. They're redigging their own grave, he told me. Their lawyer is advising them to settle, but Vanessa is refusing. She wants to go to court. Let her, I said. Meanwhile, the bank had given them an extension. But it was clear they weren't going to be able to refinance. Michal's Instagram post became increasingly desperate. Subtle at first, then more overt. Posts about how hard it was to be a young parent without family support. Posts about unexpected financial hardship. Posts with Oliver clearly designed to tug at heartstrings. With captions like, "We do our best for this little guy no matter what obstacles we face." I didn't respond to any of it. I kept my head down, focused on my routines, pruning, woodworking, volunteering at the community center. I'd started teaching a workshop on basic carpentry for teenagers. And it turned out I loved it. The kids were enthusiastic, grateful, and none of them asked me for money. Then, 6 weeks after I'd canceled the cruise, my doorbell rang. It was early evening, and I'd just finished dinner. I opened the door to find Oliver standing there with a small backpack, tears streaming down his face. Being him, Michael looked haggard. "Dad, I need your help, please, just for tonight. Vanessa and I need to talk, and we can't do it with Oliver there. Can he stay with you?" He looked at my grandson at the fear and confusion in his eyes. And I stepped aside. "Come in, Oliver." Michael practically shoved the bag at me and left without another word. I watched him drive away, then closed the door and looked down at Oliver. "How about some hot chocolate?" he asked. He nodded, wiping his nose. We sat at the kitchen table, the same table where I'd read those devastating messages. And Oliver told me everything in the way 9-year-olds do. Jumping between topics, circling back, contradicting himself. His parents fought constantly now, about money, about the house, about whose fault it was. They'd had to put the house up for sale. They'd moved in with Vanessa's parents temporarily. But Vanessa's mom and dad fought with Vanessa, and everyone was angry all the time. Michael had lost his job. Vanessa's yoga studio was failing. Everything was falling apart, and Oliver, young as he was, somehow understood that it had something to do with me, with something I'd done. "Grandpa," he asked finally, his hot chocolate forgotten. "Are you mad at Dad?" He thought about how to answer that. The truth was complicated. Was he mad? Yes. But more than that, I was heartbroken, disappointed, grieving the relationship I thought we had. "Your dad and I disagree about some grown-up things," I said finally. "But I want you to know something really important, Oliver. None of this is your fault. None of it. Do you understand me?" He nodded. But I could see he didn't entirely believe it. "And I want you to know something else. I love you very much. No matter what happens between me and your parents. That will never change. You are my grandson, and you always will be." That night, Oliver slept in the guest room where he'd stayed dozens of times before. They kept it exactly the way it was, with his stuffed animals arranged on the bed. And his favorite books on the shelf. In the morning, he came down for breakfast still in his pajamas. And for a few hours, we pretended everything was normal. We made pancakes. We built a Lego spaceship. We watched cartoons. And when Michael came to pick him up around noon, Oliver didn't want to go. "Can I stay another night, Grandpa?" Me child's jaw tightened. "We talked about this, Oliver. We're staying at Grandma and Grandpa's house now. It's going to be fun, but I like it here. Oliver, car now." He walked them to the door. Before Oliver left, he turned back and gave me a fierce hug. "I love you, Grandpa," he whispered. "I love you, too, Buddy, so much." Michael didn't say a word to me. He just led Oliver to the car and drove away. That was the last time I saw Oliver for those months. Despite the court order granting me visitation rights every other weekend, Michael and Vanessa found reasons I couldn't see him. Oliver was sick. They had plans. Vanessa's family had invited them somewhere. The excuses piled up. James filed a report with the court, building our case. In the meantime, the house sold, not for what they'd hoped, but enough to pay off the mortgage and leave them with a small amount left over. They moved into a rental apartment in a less expensive neighborhood. Michael got a new job, something in sales. Vanessa closed her yoga studio. And I started living my own life. He booked a trip, not to Alaska, but to the Maritimes. They always wanted to see the East Coast. And I joined a tour group for solo travelers over 50. We spent 2 weeks exploring Nova Scotia and Newfoundland. Hiking coastal trails, eating fresh seafood, visiting small towns where everyone knew each other's names. He met people, made friends. For the first time since Sarah died, I felt like myself again. Not just someone's father or someone's ADM, but Bob Anderson. A person with interests and value beyond what I could provide to others. When I got back, there was a letter waiting from the court. A hearing date had been set for the visitation dispute. Michael and Vanessa had continued to deny me access to Oliver. And the judge wanted to address it directly. The day of the hearing, I wore my best suit. James had prepared everything meticulously. We had documents, statements, evidence of every denied visit, every excuse, every empty promise. Michael and Vanessa sat on the other side of the courtroom with their lawyer. Vanessa looked defiant. Michael just looked tired. The judge, an older woman with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor, reviewed everything. Then she called Oliver into her chambers alone. It was in there for 20 minutes. When they came back, the judge's expression was stern. "Mr. and Mrs. Fletcher," she said, addressing Michael and Vanessa. eBay heard from Oliver about his relationship with his grandfather. He spoke very highly of Mr. Anderson. He expressed confusion about why he hasn't been able to visit. And frankly, after reviewing the evidence presented today, so am I. She flipped through the papers in front of her. You've systematically denied court-ordered visitation. Your excuses are documented and frankly transparent. What I see here is not a concerned parent protecting a child, but rather two adults using a child as leverage in what is essentially a financial dispute. Vanessa started to speak, but the judge held up her hand. I'm not finished. Mr. Anderson has demonstrated years of consistent, loving involvement in Oliver's life. He has provided for this family financially, yes. But more importantly, he has been present every school event, every birthday, every Sunday dinner. The evidence shows that Oliver actively asks to see his grandfather. And is distressed by your refusals. The judge looked at me then. Mr. Anderson, I'm granting you every other weekend visitation plus one weeknight evening per week. These visits are non-negotiable. Mr. and Mrs. Fletcher, if you violate this order again, you will be held in contempt, which can include fines and potential jail time. Do I make myself clear? Michael nodded. Vanessa's face was red. Furthermore, the judge continued, I'm ordering family therapy. All of you, including Oliver. This child should not be caught in the middle of adult conflicts. As we left the courthouse, Michael caught up with me in the parking lot. Dad, he said. Can we talk, please? He stopped, turned to face him. I'm sorry, he said, and his voice cracked. I'm so sorry. You were right about all of it. Vanessa and I, we got caught up in wanting things and keeping up with her friends. And we took advantage of your grief, of your generosity, of everything. And I can't take it back. But I want you to know I see it now. He looked at my son. Really looked at him. They lost weight. There were dark circles under his eyes. He looked older than his 35 years. What about Vanessa? He asked. Says she's not there yet. Maybe she never will be. But me, Dad, I know I messed up. I know I hurt you and I know I don't deserve it, but I'm asking anyway. Can we try again? Not the money stuff. I'm not asking for that. Just, can you forgive me? Can we figure out how to be father and son again? He thought about Sarah, about the values we'd tried to instill in Michael. About second chances and forgiveness, and whether some things could be repaired. You don't know, I said honestly. You didn't just hurt me, Michael. You betrayed me. You made me feel like I was nothing more than a wallet with a heartbeat. That's not something I can just get over. I know, but for Oliver's sake, I'm willing to try to be civil. I'm willing to show up for visitation and not make it harder for him than it has to be. Beyond that, you're going to have to earn back my trust. And that could take years. It might never happen fully. He nodded, tears in his eyes. That's more than I deserve. Thank you. He drove home alone, feeling strangely empty. The victory felt hollow. They won the legal battle, secured time with Oliver. But my relationship with my son was still broken. Maybe irreparably. But as I pulled into my driveway, I realized something. He was okay. Not happy, maybe. Not healed, certainly, but okay. He wasn't the person I'd been 6 months ago. When I'd stood in my garage reading that text message about being excluded from the cruise. That man had been lost in grief, desperate to be needed. Willing to be used if it meant feeling connected to someone. This man, the one sitting in the driveway of his paid-off house with no debt. And the future full of possibilities, was different, stronger. Clear about his boundaries and his worth. That weekend, Oliver came for his first official visitation. We finished the birdhouse together, painted it blue and white like a miniature house. We hung it in the backyard where we could see it from the kitchen window. Do you think birds will come? Oliver asked. You think so? We just have to be patient. Grandpa, he said as we stood there watching the birdhouse sway slightly in the breeze. I'm glad I get to come here again. Me too, Buddy. Me too. Later that night, after Oliver had gone to bed, he sat in my living room with a cup of tea and looked at the photos of Sarah on the mantel. He imagined what she would say about everything that had happened. I thought she'd be disappointed in Michael, of course. But I also thought she'd be proud of me for finally standing up for myself. For recognizing that love shouldn't mean letting yourself be destroyed. The next morning, I started planning my next trip. Maybe Iceland, maybe Scotland, maybe somewhere I'd never even considered before. The world felt wide open in a way it hadn't in years. Michael and I began the slow, painful work of rebuilding. Family therapy sessions every other week, awkward conversations. Moments of real connection followed by setbacks. Vanessa participated grudgingly, clearly still resentful. But Michael was trying, and Oliver thrived. Every other weekend, he came to my house and we built things together. Roses, model rockets, a small wooden boat that we tested in the local pond. I taught him how to use tools safely, how to measure twice and cut once. How to be patient with himself when things didn't work out right the first time. I also started setting up a trust fund for him, separate from anything Michael and Vanessa could access. When Oliver turned 25, he'd have enough for a good start in life. Whether that meant college, a business, or whatever he chose. But there was one condition, and I made sure it was written clearly in the trust documents. This money is for you alone. Don't let anyone use you as a bank. Don't confuse love with financial support. Know your worth beyond what you can provide to others. 3 months after the court hearing, I got a call from Michael. His voice was shaking. Dad, I need to tell you something. Vanessa and I are separating. He wasn't entirely surprised. I'd seen the tension between them at the therapy sessions. The way she blamed him for everything. The way he'd started to push back. I'm sorry, Michael. Don't be. It's been over for a while. We were just holding on because of Oliver and because neither of us wanted to admit we failed. But staying together is worse for him than splitting up. We can see that now. How is Oliver handling it? It's okay. Surprisingly okay, actually. I think he's relieved that we're not fighting constantly anymore. And Dad, I wanted to ask you something. Would you be willing to watch Oliver a few extra days a week? While Vanessa and I figure out the custody arrangement? I know it's outside the court order, but yes, I said immediately. Of course. There was a pause, then quietly. Thank you for everything. For not giving up on me, even when I gave you every reason to. You're my son, Michael. That hasn't changed. I love you, Dad. I love you, too. It wasn't perfect. We still had hard conversations ahead of us. Vanessa was still bitter and blamed me for their financial troubles. Conveniently forgetting the $32,000 in unauthorized charges. Michael was still figuring out how to be financially independent. And what kind of father he wanted to be. But we were trying, and sometimes that's all you can do. A year after I canceled that Alaska cruise, Oliver and I finally took a trip together. Used the two of us. We went to Vancouver Island, took a whale-watching tour. Hiked through rainforests, and stayed in a small cabin by the ocean. On our last night, we sat on the beach watching the sunset. And Oliver leaned against me. This is better than the cruise would have been, he said. Yeah, how do you know? Because you're here and you're happy. You're different than you used to be, Grandpa. You smile more now. Out of the mouths of babes, you know what, Oliver? You're absolutely right. I am happy. It took me a long time to figure out that I deserve to be. The waves rolled in, steady and sure. And above us, an eagle circled lazily in the darkening sky. My grandson's hand found mine, small and warm and trusting. Edie lost a lot over the past year. Money, certainly. My relationship with my son, at least temporarily. The version of myself that needed to be needed above all else. But I'd gained something infinitely more valuable. I'd gained myself back. I'd learned that setting boundaries wasn't selfish. That self-respect wasn't optional. And that sometimes the people who claim to love you are the ones who need to be loved from a distance. I'd learned that I didn't need to buy love or prove my worth through what I could provide. I was enough just as I was. Bob Anderson, retired teacher, grandfather, woodworker, traveler. Man who knew his own value. And that I'd come to understand was worth more than any cruise, any house. Any amount of money I could have spent trying to be someone I wasn't. The tide came in, washing away our footprints in the sand. He lost his son's trust, but gained his self-worth. This is Velvet Reckoning, where family betrayal meets unbreakable resolve.